In my last video, we talked about GET requests and how you can get information from a server. This begs the question, how does the server get information from me? Well, let me explain. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about HTTP methods. And what's important to understand about these is that there's more than just a GET request, and the actual GET portion of that request is what's called a method. These different methods allow you to interact with the web server in a different way and provide it with different information. This can be from sending it data to uploading files to actually removing files or editing them. And we're going to cover all of that in this video. All right, so let's lay all of these out, and we'll talk about definitions and examples later. The first one is head. After that is get, post, put, delete, patch, options, and trace. And trace we're not really going to talk about simply because its usability and its compatibility with certain browsers has been disputed across educational resources that I've referenced. Okay, so we're going to start off by talking about head. Now, we already talked about get in my first video, and what head does is it's pretty much the same thing as a GET request, only it's not requiring a response body from the server. So it's a lot faster. It's more of just kind of like a check-in, like just give me what headers that you need. We don't need a full response body. Just give me this one little snippet. Okay, as you can see here, I've navigated to facebook.com. And when I made that navigation at first, similar to last video, I sent a GET request and I received a 301 move permanently, so the website was redirecting me. On the second GET request that was automatically issued, I received a 200. In terms of HTTP and HTML speak, this essentially means we're good to go, and we can receive all the content of the page. As we can see over here, the actual length of content that was received is 83,759 bytes. What this really means is that down here is all of the HTML code that we received in our browser. So in order to demonstrate a head request, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send this to what's called the repeater in Burp Suite. Again, Burp Suite is outside of the scope of this video, but all that you really need to understand is that the repeater allows me to modify this request pre-flight. So before this request goes out to the server, I can change things about it. Now all I'm going to do in this case is simply change the method to head. And what you'll see here is the response that we got was 4,000 bytes. So while it still gave us all the information about their content security policy and cookies and all these headers and things we'll get into later, it did not include all of that HTML code at the bottom. This is essentially what a head request does. It is a way that you request a response from the server, but it does not include the response body. Okay, so next up we're going to talk about get. We already talked about this in my first video, and what it's important to realize is I want to get information from the server. But what's actually important in this portion is the response code and the headers and the cookies that you'll receive from the server. The post request is used most commonly for login forms. So if you're going to send credentials to a website or to a web server, this will usually be done through a post request. It allows you to send a body of information to the server, such as your username or password, and I'll exemplify that here. As you can see, I've navigated to facebook.com. If you look at the login bar, you'll see that I've entered in something simple, example@example.com, and in the password bar, I've just simply put password. We're going to go ahead and send this. And then over here in my HTTP history, I should be able to scroll down. And somewhere in here, there's going to be a post request. And what you're going to see here is that I've sent a post request to the login form at Facebook. And down here in the bottom, you'll see the actual body of the post request, which includes my email, the login source, and then an encoded password. A lot of websites actually won't encode the password whenever you send it. This is, in this case, strictly a Facebook thing. And we'll get into encoding and things like that a little bit later. The put request replaces all current representations of a resource that you specify. So essentially, when you look at the last resource after the last / in your URL bar, such as /login or /index.html, if you were to submit a valid put request, you would replace that resource with whatever HTML code you wanted. Quite literally, you would be putting the resource onto the web server. Kind of the same as a file upload. As you can see in the screen above, we have both a put request and a put response. I didn't want to actually demo this live as I don't have a lot of permissions from websites freely upload files to their website, but this could also include things that are saved, like email templates or images that you pass to a website or something of the sort. Now, as we can see, we have the request method, which is put, and then the file path. So new.html in this case would be the file that you want to place on the web server. Or if a new.html already exists, you would replace that file on the web server. And then below that we have the host, which in this case is example.com. And below that you have a bit of HTML code, which in this case, all it simply reads is new file. So if you were to navigate to example.com/new.html, you would find a page that at the top of it simply reads the words new file. What you see in the response is a 201 created. This is the way that the web server is going to tell us that yes, you are good to go, I created this, and the content location that you just placed is at the following directory. Again, in this case, that is new.html. The delete request does the exact opposite of a put request. It formally removes the resource specified from the web server. So in some cases, if you didn't have proper authorization controls in place, someone could quite literally remove your index.html file or your web page off of your web server for you. When it comes to the delete request, as you can see above, we have an example of the request and the response. In the HTTP method, we are simply going to tell the web server, please delete, in this case, /file.html at host example.com. Now, the response that you can get is, they can all be a little bit different, and there's really 3 of them. 202 accepted means that the action will likely succeed, but hasn't necessarily been enacted by the actual web server. A 204 no content status code is if the action has been enacted, but there's not any further information that the web server is willing to give you. And then a 200 OK status code, which is what we see above, is if the action has been enacted and the response message includes some sort of confirmation that the action has taken place. The options method is essentially asking the server for a list of options of methods that you can use. So in some cases, servers will deny you the option to utilize a put request to keep people from uploading malicious files onto web servers. Or similarly, it will prevent people from issuing a valid delete request. As you can see above, we have an example of an options request. As previously stated, options is quite literally asking the server for options of valid inputs or requests that it accepts. In the case above, we are sending an options request to example.org. There are 2 examples here, one of which is curl or curl, which is a command line tool, and again, burp suite. And the response could possibly look something like this. We have a 204 no content, so the web server actually has no content to serve us, but the request has been accepted, which is indicative of a 200 response code, or 2XX, something, a number that replaces those X's. In the allow response header, we see options, get, head, and post. So if we were to try, say, put or delete, the web server would actually not allow us to do that. But if we were to send a valid get or head request, it's perfectly fine. The patch method falls in line with a put method. While a put method is uploading an entire resource, what the patch does is it provides simple modifications to that resource after it has already been uploaded. As previously stated, a patch request would allow us to modify the content that is in a specific file. In the case above, we have file.txt at example.com, and we send it a patch request with a description of changes. So instead of it saying new file, maybe we have it say old file or something of the sort. Again, the server is going to give us a 204 response. A 2XX, 200, 203, 204, 201, something like that, is going to say that the request was received. No content simply means that the server doesn't have anything to give us outside of that the request was received and was most likely executed. In order to verify these changes, we may have to actually do a GET request for that file path and double check our work. And that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned something about HTTP methods that may help you along in your travels. If you're enjoying my educational content or have ideas for a future video that you would like for me to talk about, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. All those great and lovely things. And I will see you next time. Response code, which we'll talk about. Fuck, when am I going to talk about that? Fuck, I was so close on that one. You have to pee again? It's okay, I love you. This is going in the video. Yes. I know, that's what makes it funny. I hate my life.